Being numb for over a decade of my life was the catalyst to living my dream. But I didn't even know what it was that I really wanted. We're often encouraged to have a clear vision in order to take the steps to attain a goal. My path was quite different than this. What if the universe has something even bigger in store for you? Something beyond your wildest dreams? Something you wouldn't or couldn't even imagine for yourself? I was someone who lived with a lot of worry and anxiety. I had lost connection with my inner voice and was stuck in my ego mind, very reactive to the world around me. I was a classic people pleaser, a good girl, a perfectionist, and someone who did what I thought I was supposed to do. And like every one of us, I had things happen in my life that were painful. Being highly sensitive, I felt everything very deeply, but didn't always know how to deal with my emotions. So I coped in the best way I knew how to at the time, and that was avoidance and keep hustling and moving forward. Eventually, this caught up with me. After years of holding on to a toxic secret, and after my friend's suicide attempt, the final blow for me was finding out my husband and I couldn't have children. The loss was deep. Everything around me just faded away, and I went numb. Of course, I was completely oblivious to this at the time, but I was no longer feeling any of my feelings. I put a happy face on top of it all. From the outside looking in, all appeared to be fine, but it was not fine at all. I felt isolated and lonely, suffering in silence. Moving through life on autopilot isn't living. It's a slow death of your soul. And don't get me wrong, I was what you could call high functioning. I owned my own home. I ran 2 thriving businesses, one a classical piano studio and the other a jewelry business. I had a loving family and a wonderful husband. But I had worn the mask of happy, successful woman for so long that even I was fooled. It was an Oscar-worthy performance. And then, one day, through the fog of comfortably numb, my intuition spoke up in a quick flash of knowing. I just had this feeling I couldn't shake that something was wrong. I was so unaware at the time, I couldn't quite put my finger on it. All I knew was that something was off, and I listened. Since I really had nothing to go on per se, I simply started by following what I felt drawn to and allowed myself to be led. I tried so many new things, and even when my mind couldn't make sense of the how or the why, I trusted, I followed the signs, and I believed. I flew to New York City on a whim to take an acting class. I'm laughing at this one. I played roller derby, a contact sport. Yeah. And I even married myself. At the time, I didn't know why I was doing any of these particular things, but letting my heart lead the way, I didn't need to know or understand. Every step I took led me to the next. As I started to spend more time with myself, I had to let go of the fear that in focusing on me, I would abandon others. I had spent years abandoning myself, and I knew that I had to stay the course and keep going. I had to save myself. And then it happened, my awakening moment. I was on a call with my mastermind group and was so surprised when all of these old stories from my past were coming up. When I got off the call, I was so angry. Why was I holding on to these stories? I thought I had worked through them and moved on. Frustrated, I grabbed my journal and decided to write out all of the pain of my past, old wounds, unsaid words, and how I had felt wronged. I wrote and wrote for hours. Instead of just intellectually processing and recording, I surrendered and I allowed myself to fully feel all of those repressed emotions. I cried out all the old tears and felt a deep, profound release with every one. It was hard, and I stayed with it. And then I was done. Something started to shift, and I was overcome with immense gratitude for all of my experiences, even the painful ones. Gratitude because I knew that all of it combined to create who I was in that moment right then. The reward was great. I woke up from my years of sleepwalking. Colors were instantly brighter and sounds were sweeter. All of my senses were really keen and everything was amplified. I was reborn. I felt so different and so new in this moment that when I looked into the mirror, I even felt like I had a new face. I snapped my very first selfie to record the moment. What followed was a creative journey back to me. After years of being numb, feeling my feelings again was really overwhelming. I could feel the seductive dance pulling me back to the numbness, but I knew I didn't ever want to go back. Instinctively, I started capturing selfies of my emotions. Whenever I felt joy, I snapped a selfie. In the depths of despair, I snapped a selfie. Being an artist, I then represented those feelings visually and created art out of my self-portraits. This selfie practice allowed me to acknowledge and be aware of my feelings again, to love and honor all of my feelings, and to express myself after years of being bound and self-repressed. It became crystal clear to me that what I wanted the most was to be fully self-expressed. I had been performing on stages as a classical musician. What I didn't know was that the performance had found its way into my life. I was performing at life, acting as if, and I wanted to change that to pure, authentic self-awareness, love, and expression. I had lost connection with my inner voice, my higher self source energy. It was time to tune into a new channel. I let myself play and express. I was curious and brave. Really, even though I had done so many things in my life that would be considered brave, the most fearless thing I ever did was to honestly face my pain and allow myself to fully feel my feelings again. Now, back to that first selfie. By the way, I had always looked at selfies as narcissistic. And I mean, really, like, why would anybody ever do that? But my selfies were different. They were a tool for healing, transformation, and artistic expression. I remember when I looked at the first one, I thought, that looks like an album cover. I was a classical pianist, so that kind of made sense, but it didn't look like a classical album cover. Weird, I thought. I even put the title on it, Eyes Wide Open. This represented both my awakening moment and the fact that my senses were so heightened that I literally did feel like I was seeing through new eyes. I stared at my creation and said, I guess I'm recording an album. Since I'd been used to living from my headspace, I immediately went to work, choosing my repertoire, and I brought a committed daily piano practice back into my life. I was going to make this happen. But the universe had something very different in store for me. And this is where my story takes a turn into the magical and mystical realm. I sat down to play some Beethoven, and as I struck the first chord, my hands continued to play a completely different piece. The only way I can describe this moment, it was like an out-of-body experience. I became an observer, witnessing my hands moving over the keys differently than ever before, playing a song I didn't know, from beginning to end, in complete and finished form. But how was this possible? I didn't improvise. I didn't play by ear or write music. I think I'm writing a song. I was so shocked, lit up on the highest high you can imagine. I quickly scrambled to grab some staff paper and write down the notes so I wouldn't forget it. I felt breathless and moved, excited and confused. When I finished, I was dumbfounded. My mind tried to make sense of it. Oh, I must have heard it before. I played it for friends asking, have you ever heard this song before? No was the answer I heard over and over again. So even though I rationalized that I must have played this by ear, I knew that this simply was not the case. Plus, if I was going to write music, wouldn't it be classical? This was a lyrical pop ballad. At first I kind of stuck my nose up in the air at it, but then I knew in my heart that I had to be open to this gift. Whatever it was that I was receiving here wasn't for me to judge. It was simply for me to allow and to receive. I just had to accept it. Magic happened. I wondered if this would or could even happen again. So I set up similar circumstances the next day, and another song came, and another. Then I started to wake up in the mornings hearing songs so clearly, so vividly, like they were coming from a speaker right in the same room. The music flowed rapidly and with such ease. I had opened up a channel to download song after song after song. I worried it would not come back, so I was almost obsessed at first. I came to a point where I was just awestruck at the amount of music I had flowed through. I looked back to the calendar, and I had written 40 songs in 40 days. Emotional. See, I feel my feelings now. At this point, they were piano only, but I had a sense that these were actually songs. Lyrics started to fall in the same way the music was, in complete and finished form. Just like that first day when I had the out-of-body experience at the piano keys, I started to experience something similar when writing lyrics. It was sort of like watching the pen in my hand flow over the paper, releasing words. Again, I was merely an observer. No figuring out, no struggle, no reworking. Simply tapping into this limitless source of abundance and energy. I liken it to a flowing river where I can just dip my hand in and pull something out. When I first heard the music, there were so many songs floating up there, all going on at once, that I would have to narrow my focus to just one and then pull it down. I had heard of channeling before, but I was skeptical. I really didn't believe in anything like this until it happened for me. And my gift expanded into sound healing, creating mantra recordings and meditation music. I recorded that album, Eyes Wide Open, of my first songs, and I even started singing and worked with a music producer to record 2 singles. I had a sense that my selfie practice was meant to be shared to see if it could help anyone else. I created the See Your Selfie experiment, which hundreds of people have courageously journeyed. It's been so amazing to watch how everything has unfolded. I've created courses on manifesting and creativity, and all of it has come via my channel. And now, my work with clients has really taken a next level step as I share intuitive guidance and wisdom received especially for them. After years of being shut down to hearing my inner voice, I opened up a channel to hear divine. After years of silencing my voice, I discovered my singing, artistic, and channeling voice. After years of feeling a disconnect from my soul, myself, I found my true love, me, and in seeing myself, found oneness and love for all. Creativity is so powerful. Being creative allows us to access our subconscious dreams and desires, to tap into what our waking mind doesn't always feel ready to see. My songs revealed myself to me, and with each one I got to unearth my stories, acknowledge my pain, and release the binds that were holding me in a decade-long pause. Tuning inward to myself and my truth helped me to unlock a whole new universal channel, vibrating in resonance with my life's passion and purpose. In sharing my expression, I invite others to see and share their own. I remember the day I shared my song, The Inner Child Knocks, and a woman I didn't even know said, "You speak for me." This is when I knew that sharing our creations, our stories, goes well beyond ourselves. What we create for ourselves, we create for all. For in oneness there truly is no separation. The reason I felt compelled to come and share part of my story with you today is that I want you to know that you are safe to feel all of your feelings. And it's super important because your emotions are like your soul's inner GPS, guiding you on your path to your highest self. Your voice matters. Even if you feel like it's all been said before, no one can say it from your unique perspective. And that's why what you have to share is valuable. Listen to your intuition. It will never lead you astray. Some things go beyond our current understanding. Be open to the possibility that your intuition may just know more than you do. There is magic in you. Even if you don't know what it is or how it wants to be expressed, trust that you are here for a reason and a purpose. You don't have to have a complete vision in order to move toward your dream. Yes, have a goal, but also be open to the ebb and flow of how it may show up for you or how your vision may change. You never know. The universe may just have something even bigger and better in store for you. It sure did for me.